All right, everybody. What we have here is a special guest. As you can see, looking very beautiful. Got his Dagestani beard, Dagestani ears. This is Chris Wojcik. Is that Polish?
Yes, it is Polish.
Come on, give me some credit. He is an ADCC competitor, not just a competitor. He was ranked, I believe, 14th going in to the tournament at ADCC this year, just this last weekend, and he ended up getting fourth, which is, I mean, you're talking about top of the food chain at this point. Also came in as an alternate, so everyone writes you off at that point. You're like, you're just going to be that highlight reel submission for someone else, and then you're going to be gone. But instead, he decided to submit a couple of people, and then also have to go against his teammate, which we will talk about that as well. But thanks for coming on, Chris. This is kind of our first time talking like long form. Me and you met in Vegas, but it's also our first time having someone on in like a Zoom kind of meeting. So thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, awesome. I'm happy to be here. Excited.
So also, Chris is an avid writer and has the Grappler's Diary, which I am not a reader. So as I told Chris right before we came on, I should be good because I graduated second grade twice. So I should have my reading comprehension down. But I am definitely an audio, podcast, all that kind of thing. But the only thing I read online is actually Chris's what would you call it? Like a blog or?
So the technical term is a comic essay. It's like a tiny little essay.
A comic essay?
Comic essay. That's what it's called.
Okay.
Well, like I just call them little posts, little.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to tell my mom that because she's going to think that I'm just reading comic books. But so just so people can kind of have an idea, is I'm throwing it up right now, is one of the posts that you actually just put out just this morning. What it was like competing at ADCC. Just a couple bullet points. It was stressful. It was tiring. It was cool. It was heartbreaking, and it was fulfilling. So if people want to follow Chris on Instagram, Twitter, I recommend as well. He's a great follow. You're going to actually get a lot of honest opinions, because something that Chris does that I really like is he will just be bold when it comes to nerves, um, the challenges, the weirdos in the community, the cool people in the community. And also, he happens to train at one of the most prolific gyms in the world, which is B Team. But with that, Chris, let's actually jump into a little bit of the B Team stuff, if you don't mind. How'd you end up finding yourself there? Because from my recollection, you've only been at B Team for a year, maybe two.
Literally like a year and 3 weeks. I've been there full time.
What made that?
Yeah, so I came up. I trained in Chicago. That's where I got like all my belts. Under a guy named Jeff Seraphin, and he code cornered me at ADCC, so that was really cool to have like my day one kind of instructor corner me for ADCC. But I got to a point when I was in Chicago where I was having a really hard time getting like training partners who were like the level of the people who I was competing with, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna need to move eventually if like professional level jiu-jitsu is something I want to pursue. And so that started this like it was like the end of 2022, early 2023 that I started like kind of this like journey of like figuring out where I was going to go. And I went to San Diego. I was in Ohio training with Dante Leon for a while. I've been all over the place. I've been in New York to train with Jason Rao, and like everywhere. You name like a big jiu-jitsu place, I've been there probably training. And I went to Austin. So I actually went to Austin for the first time in February of 2022, but then I went again early 2023. When I went in 2023, I was like, oh, I actually like, I think I could see myself training here every day. And I went to a bunch of gyms in Austin, and, I was like, I think B Team is the one that I kind of vibe with the best, because it's like it was actually the things that people talked down about B team. Those are the things that I liked. They're like, oh, there's not a lot of structure, and I'm like, I kind of like there's not a lot of structure because you can kind of create your own structure. And like sometimes people will say like, oh, it's like chaotic, and I kind of like that it's a little chaotic. It's like fun. And and obviously things kind of changed when Dima came to run the ADCC camp, and that was really important that happened for us. But like, I kind of just found my way there because I of all the gyms that I went to, that was the one that I liked the most. And, we got along, and, it wasn't like this crazy story. I didn't know anybody there. I just kind of showed up and I was, pretty good. And they were like, they were cool with me moving down here. So I just moved down and started training.
Did they know who you were previously? Because you had a good trials run in the previous ADCC. So I figure, famously, some of your teammates do not watch jiu-jitsu at all and who don't know anybody. And so I figured maybe they wouldn't remember who you were. But did they kind of know when you walked into the room, like, oh, that's that one guy?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of guys recognized me from 2022 trials. And but it's funny enough, the first time I went down to B team was 2023. Oh God, I'm getting my years mixed up. 2022, February of 2022. Before that really good trials run, I went down to B team. I had long blonde hair, like it was bleach blonde, and I knew I was friends with one of the guys who teaches the fundamentals class, and I just like showed up to train to see him, and like show face. And that was the first time I went. Nobody knew who I was, like, because there was no reason to know who I was. I was a purple belt world champion, which is a good achievement, but compared to like the kind of things that people in that room are doing, that's like nothing.
Right. That's a good point. Is a purple belt world champion at the adult level, you're freaking good. Like, you're a good practitioner. You're going to walk into any room across the country and give black belts. You'll either take their lunch or you're going to give them a really good round.
Yeah.
Yeah, no gi or gi, really. I really find that so I primarily do gi, but when I do no gi, and I think this is vice versa, like, it translates pretty well. Like, yes, there's going to be the nuance of maybe if you're a gi guy like me and doing no gi, like, I'm going to be a little out of water in the leg game if I never practice it. But I
Yeah.
am at a gym where we actually, even in the gi, will mess around and, like, with our trusted training partners, we'll
Mhm.
explore all those positions and stuff like that, allow heel hooks in 50-50s so it's not so dumb, and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. So that is a pretty substantial achievement. Did you also win at blue?
No, I medaled at blue,
Okay.
at Nogi Worlds twice. And then I medaled at Pans at blue belt. And then I won Nogi Worlds at blue belt. And then by brown belt, I pretty much switched to Nogi full time. And then I was like, IBJJF is cool, but there's literally no way to make any money doing this in the IBJJF, unfortunately.
Is
Unless you
that
like,
what
if
was
you
that your
get some money, but that's it. But
right? Exactly, and that's, I guess, is that the reason that you went? Is the money the main reason that you dropped the gi, or was it more like, I don't like it as much?
so I think that to do anything in jujitsu for the money tends to be kind of stupid because there's not that much money either way, and it's growing now, right? CJI is that completely changed, but that was like something that I couldn't have fathomed at brown belt when I quit the gi. My
Without
goal,
owning an academy.
yeah, owning an academy is like, but that's like you can be a gi practitioner and own a successful academy. You can be a no gi practitioner and own a successful academy. That's something that's kind of independent of which discipline that you choose.
Mhm.
Uh, but I found that like I wrestled when I was in high school, so I was just better at no gi, and I was like, I want to just do the thing that I'm better at. And then, oh, by the way, if you win a no gi tournament, you get cash. Which is not a ton of cash, but it's more than you get for doing a gi tournament. So I was like, okay, I'm better at this. The tournaments give you money, and then also too, being in Chicago, I was really close to Ohio. So I used to go train with Dante all the time. And he quit the gi. He was like one of the first people to quit the gi in like 2019, 2018. And he was like, dude, no gi is like the future. And at the time I was like, yeah, but I still like doing the gi. But the seed was planted. And so I finally quit the gi in 2021. And it was, I would definitely say, because of all my time going over there to train and only training no gi and kind of seeing that they're becoming kind of different sports.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that I found that I have been watching jiu-jitsu like a super fan since about 2005-ish, maybe
Mhm.
2004. And but I didn't start training till 2017. As in like actually like really put in effort. I had a cup of coffee at a guy named John Botello in Phoenix, 10th Planet instructor. Um, and then I would like drop into random gyms and like do a month, mainly because I was broke and
Yeah.
it was expensive and just scheduling wise just never worked out. And then in 2017, I was finally in a place in life where I was like, I'm going and I'm doing it. And then I just trained 2 a days for the next 5 years. And but I started at 10th Planet and I was in the Nibiru forums and which I think are still going. But I remember back then where it was kind of nogi. It felt like a different sport. Back it was looked at back then, but just it wasn't taken seriously at all. And I
Yeah.
don't know if that was the Eddie Bravo thing where every Brazilian hated Eddie Bravo at that time. Um, it felt like he was kind of like doing something bad for the sport when in actuality, I think he was doing nothing but good. Um, but I always look at from what I hear from a lot of nogi guys is they don't want to do the gi because it slows you down. It's just all I hear is it's harder because the grips. That's the only thing that, in my opinion, really would make no or gi harder than no gi is that you have to learn to break grips before you can pass. Um, would you say that one is harder than the other, or one is, which I'm not saying gi is actually harder. I'm just saying like when I hear that excuse of like I don't want to do gi because it's I can't get past these damn spider grips, or if someone gets a pants grip, it's just stupid. Um, would you say one is harder than the other, or would you say that they're just kind of two different animals that have the same DNA?
Oh, so I think that, so I mean, now, one thing that I always hated in the gi was like lapel 50-50. Like people would put me in fit, and this was competition. So people would put me in 50-50, wrap the lapel around the leg, and then we would sit there. And I'm not allowed to do a heel hook because of the rules. And I'm like, I can't do the thing that I need to do. You're leaving your leg out because you know I can't do it, and all you're trying to do is knock me over. And I always thought that was kind of dumb. But
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't the reason I quit the gi. It was like, I feel like, I don't know if one is harder than the other. I think that they're just so different. And I think they attract like different mindsets. Like I think in Nogi now, like most of the like Nogi fighters are like very like submission oriented. Whereas like when I was coming up in the gi, a lot of the top guys in the gi were like, there's obviously exceptions, but a lot of the top guys were just like, I want to do what needs to be done to win. I don't care about like being exciting. And in Nogi, and I think this comes back to Eddie Bravo pushing like the submission only mindset. In Nogi, there was this like kind of wave of grapplers who were not focused so much on not just winning, but like being entertaining. And that was something that like after like a few years of like, doing IBJJF and just like trying to win the points game, which I did, I like literally I won the points game. I won a purple belt world title in IBJJF. Like after a few years, I'm like, dude, fuck this. I just want to like do jujitsu. I want to be fun to watch. I want to try to submit people. I want to be a part of like that kind of side of jujitsu. But like in terms of training in the gi and training in no gi are equally as enjoyable to me. You know,
Oh,
I
really?
just I just do nogi now because I'm competing in nogi. But like if I wasn't competing at all, like if you said Chris, you can never compete, I'd probably train like I do both. They're both fun.
Yeah.
But I also came up doing both. Like my gym back in Chicago, we would have gi week, and then the next week is no gi week, which is not a lot of gyms do that. Like
Yeah.
most gyms have like gi class and no gi class. We had gi week, so like every class for the week would be gi, and then every class for the next week would be no gi.
How would the attendance vary, or would it vary?
It wouldn't because like, what are you gonna take a week off of training because you don't like the gi? So it kind of solved that problem. And I
It's
think that if I
almost,
was in the gym, that's kind of what I would do.
yeah, it's almost because I think it's pretty standard that if you're, I mean, I don't know how many no gi gyms have like one or two gi nights, but there's a lot of gyms that do gi and then one or two gi classes. And
Yeah.
his every time I drop in, I'm like a nomad too. I like to cross train a lot. Every time I see that, no gi is always way lighter than gi. But I could see that this structure of just doing gi week, no gi week, gi, or whatever, almost bites that in the butt immediately. It creates this culture of like, no, you're doing jujitsu or submission
Yeah.
grappling, whatever you want to call it, but
Yeah.
we're just doing it this way, and then we're going to do it this way. And I I was teaching at Cascade Jiu Jitsu before I moved, and um, we got to a point where we only have one no-gi class a week, and I was teaching the day classes, and we got to a point where there was a lot of people that they just wanted another gi or a no-gi class. Um, the day class ends up having a lot of firefighters and cops and people that could really use kind of the methodologies of no-gi with overhooks and underhooks and not relying on Barambola spider guard stuff. And so I started teaching the class at a split where whatever technique I was showing, I would show the no gi variant or grips, if you will, and then the gi version. Now that challenged my autistic mind greatly because as I'm showing, I'm trying to think. I think I was doing like butterfly with an overhook, like an entangled arm kind of thing. So you can go mirror locks, and you can go, violin, a whole bunch of those things,
Mhm.
but also working in gi grips and belt grips for the butterfly stuff, and then switching where I have someone that's like asking me a pure no gi question. It's like my mind was a little all over the place, but that's where the autism thing does come in handy. Is I can kind of multitask if I like it. If I don't like it, then I'm going to start drooling. But liking it makes a
Yeah.
huge difference. But I
Yeah.
can see that culture thing that you're talking about. If you start your gym at some point and you just do that right out the gate, it's probably going to be, you're not going to get so much pushback, I assume.
Yeah, we had so at Sarah from BJJ in Chicago is where I came up. That was like he had so when I first started, it was like a normal gym. It was Monday, Wednesday, Friday was gi, Tuesday, Thursday was no gi, and Saturday was gi. So we had two no gi classes per week. And then he started doing the every other week thing. Like it was like he's like, I'm gonna try it for a year. And after a year, no one wanted to go back because everyone wanted to train both, you know? It was
Mm.
like really successful. And like most of the gyms that are affiliated with us, like it's kind of crazy. Like when I met Jeff, he was like brand new black belt. There were no affiliates, and now there's like affiliates all over Chicago under him. And most of the gyms that we're affiliated with, they follow the same kind of gi week, no gi week, and they do both. And the result of it is you produce a more complete student because your people don't care. They're like, I can train gi, I can train no gi. We can. It's not. You're not learning gi. You're not learning no gi. You're learning jujitsu, and everything that you're going to learn is going to work in both. And obviously, as you learn, you're going to find the nuances, and you're going to be able to appreciate both. For their own things. Like I was a lapel guard player in the gi, and then a leg locker in no gi. I trained so much of both.
Mm. I so I play a lot of lapel. I What I did was when lapel started getting popular, or the encyclopedia came out and stuff like that. So and we started seeing it more. at the lower belts, not just Miha, or not Miha, but Andres and some of the like really top level lapel guys,
Yeah.
Hibamar and stuff. We started seeing it at the lower belts, and we had the leg locker effect, which was you could be a blue belt that only did leg locks, and you could start submitting black belts, like
Yeah.
because the neglect in the last 100 years of leg locks, and so then you just rely on leg locks, and you actually have kind of shit jiu-jitsu by the time you're a brown belt because you relied on this kind of niche thing, and then the black belts started getting better at it because they stopped neglecting it, and now your game actually isn't quite that good. I saw the same thing with lapel,
Yeah.
blue and yeah, white, blue, and purple. They started really hitting it hard. If you could shut it down, they're actually not that good because their game is so niche. So I did a year of only playing lapel. I was like, and it was more for me was to be able to help the gym. So if they went to a tournament or I went to a tournament, we actually were familiar with it. So I was kind of doing it almost like a test to be like, well, if we get one guy in the gym that knows lapel, it's going to have a trickle down effect for the whole gym. Kind of like that. There's always that one leg locker in the gym, at least back in the day,
Yeah.
where it's like, I'm going to go to that guy because he's going to have an answer for this, that, or the other. And so I played it for a year, and it's kind of funny. Once I played it, all right, after that year, it really started to die away again.
Yeah.
I think Keenan came out with the lapel killer jiu-jitsu X. I was like, well, that was fun, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's I find, because my leg lock game isn't, I'm not super offensive, but I feel like my defense is okay. And I feel like part of it kind of relates to lapel, because when you're playing that lapel game, you do have your foot kind of in a precarious position at the hip there. So you, for like, let's say squid guard, you always have to make sure you have inside position with the knee. Otherwise, you'll get knee barred if you're not sharp on your foot positioning on the hip. If you let that foot go too deep over the hip, they're going to toe hold you immediately or something. So I felt like actually playing lapel helped my leg lock defense game. But
Mhm.
what do you think?
Uh, like I don't know. For me, I learned leg locks because it was the way to submit people who were better than me.
Oh, so you were the blue belt guy. That was
Yeah, I was a brown belt when I started learning that, and then I kind of became well rounded later on. But like I feel like for me, lapels were more like a I loved Keenan when I was like a blue belt and purple belt. He was like, because Keenan was kind of going back to what we were saying about Gi and Nogi. Keenan was like the guy who was like he'd do like he'd do Nogi Worlds, and then he would do Gi Worlds, and he would do ADCC, and he would do Abu Dhabi World Pro. He just did it all.
way more successful in Nogi too.
Yeah, but he beat Marigali and the Gi,
Yep.
and then he like did ADCC later. Like he was like the guy who could do both, and I was like, I want to be like that. So that was like kind of my goal, and I think that I gravitated to lapels because lapels were like the kind of cutting edge technique in the Gi, and then I gravitated to leg locks eventually because that was like the cutting edge thing in Nogi. So it was like these are the two best ways to win in each discipline. And if I had come to jujitsu like 5 years earlier, maybe I'd have been a bolo guy. But like I came up when lapels were popular. So it's like I think that every generation there are trends. Like if you look at Nogi now, I think that leg locks are not the thing anymore. I think that now at the high levels of Nogi, everybody knows leg locks, or at the very least, they know leg lock defense. And now I think the trend is like wrestling and but not like normal wrestling. It's like this like kind of weird judo wrestling hybrid
Mm-hmm.
thing, upper body attacks. And so those are the things that are like really popular now. Whereas like when I came up, and you said you started 2017.
Yeah, that's when I really started training a lot.
I started 2015. We kind of started around the same time, but I think we rode the same wave together.
Yeah, that's true, because I remember the bolo thing. where like obviously we were seeing the Rotolos as little kids doing it, and then you were seeing like the Meows just crushing everybody with it, Mikey, um, and then uh, and then yeah, then the lapels thing came, and then Keenan started saying bolos don't work, and, and then
Which is like the equivalent of people saying leg locks don't work. You know, it's like the
right,
same thing.
which I thought was funny because he did come out and he was like, he came out and said, "I'm just saying they don't work if you know how to defend it." Like he kind of clarified a little bit because I think Mikey got upset too,
Yeah.
and that was a funny little spat. And then yeah, like the seasons, right? The Choi bar or arm saddle, whatever you want to call
Yeah.
it, like that. I mean, that's still kind of riding high, I think, right now. But from a guard perspective, but like I
Yeah.
jumped all over that. And I have similar flexibility as you. Like even though I think because me and you're a little bit bigger than me, but like we have a little bit of muscle on us. We're not like skinny, wiry guys,
Yeah.
but we have pretty darn good dexterity and mobility in our, especially our lower body. Um, and it makes the Choi bar just beautiful, like or that arm saddle. You can,
Yeah.
I really like to when I throw the leg over, like a cross step kind of deal. I actually like to tell me what you think about this because I prefer instead of bringing that foot over to the hip and then doing like the knee clamp. When you're already kind of digging on that elbow and you kick that leg over to the hip and then you can kind of extend and break it or break the arm loose. I like to actually go shin to the neck and like point the knee into their face kind of thing to push their head away. I know it promotes the forward roll a little bit more, which puts you into like a more of a normal arm bar. But
Yeah.
even for the Choi bar, I like to actually get that shin position there on the neck and then my bottom leg just pushing on the hip and almost kind of hanging out there for a second and trapping that arm in kind of like a Kimura position. I find I actually get more finishes from there without even extending the arm, but just like really getting the elbow up and like getting them into like that kind of Kimura weird kind of arm lock position. What about you? What's kind of your preference in that position?
So I mainly play Choi bar to get the Kimura traps. I feel like I'm just starting to actually hit the arm bar. I mostly use it to go Kimura trap and then go to the back, or because I'm better at finishing back from the back than I am at finishing from the arm bar. I'd rather just try to get to the back.
Like what
Uh,
Levi and Felipe Andrew did, I think at
yeah,
CJI.
yeah, similar. I think Levi does it better than I do, but same idea.
Yeah.
And then like I'll use it also just to get posture, and then I'll go back to the legs. Because I think Choi bar is a direct response to people learning how to defend leg locks. And so I'm just going Choi bar just to go back to the legs.
Right. So if you're maybe trying to get your K guard entry, you got your knee down to the mat, your foot's on the hip, you're kind of trying to dig a leg, but you just are too heavy. They're sitting on their butt, their arms typically exposed. Dig for the Choi bar, which then causes them to maybe either come forward or up, and then now your leg entry's there.
Yeah, well, I think a really good example is Lachlan. Like Lachlan, he hit K guard. I think this is like a perfect like example of the connection between the Choi bar and the leg locks. Lachlan, like he K guarded everybody at ADCC 2019. Like he literally made the K guard famous. And then the next ADCC ever, he didn't compete for 2 years. And the next ADCC, everyone is like, they know Lachlan is the K guard guy, and now he's doing Choi bars because it's the next kind of progression.
Right. Yeah, that was. I remember at that one when he went against Cade, and Cade just tried to pass to north south, and Lachlan was ready. He had that clean setup where he would just get that little short hook behind the elbow, and he would just flick into almost like this Choi bar, cigar cutter, whatever you want to call it, kind of like arm bar.
Yeah, I think Cade submitted Lachlan in that match, so people don't watch it. But like Lachlan looked amazing before he got submitted. He looked really good.
that is a match that I studied a lot because yeah, like exactly. Cade had that kind of like cool arm bar where he's like kicking him in the face like 14 times and like but everything before that was a guard retention seminar and like
Yeah.
and guard retention with attacks because I remember Lachlan multiple times like it you would think that he was actually getting past when he was actually maintaining inside position almost the whole time and then he was throwing submission attempts while retaining and even though Cade was already doing the step on the legs thing and
Yeah.
like kind of cagey stuff. It didn't matter. He just always and we actually the cool thing about CJI was they didn't have music during it, which I don't hate the. I want to get your opinion on that too. I don't hate the music during the matches. At this ADCC, they pumped that bass up way too much. I was like, it was crushing me. And then, and I see a lot of people were saying that it was just the bass was too much. But at CJI, they didn't have music, and you could hear Lachlan yelling to Levi. I think it was in the Cade match because Lachlan kept, or excuse me, Levi rather, he kept getting his bottom leg pinned so he was very near past like a Cade was almost trying like a knee cut and he was stapling that bottom leg. And you could hear Lachlan say, recover the bottom knee, recover the bottom knee. And when I think back to Lachlan's match with Cade, that's what he did every time. As soon as Cade would pin that bottom leg, start flanking at a his main goal was just recover the bottom knee, maintain inside position with his arm frames, and then he felt safe the whole time. So it was an interesting concept for sure.
Yeah, I think that Lachlan and Levi are like kind of the cutting edge for guard stuff right now. That anybody who wants to like develop their guard, you should be watching that. Like the fact that he played guard for 25 minutes against one of the best passers in the world, and he didn't get close to giving up a pass.
Not even close. And how about this? When Cade sat down and Levi got on top, he almost passed him in like 30 seconds.
Well, I think that a lot of those, like, part of it is fatigue, right? Like, if you've been passing for 20 minutes and then now you're not going to have the same retention. But also, too, like, a lot of those bolo guard players, they have some of the best pressure. Like, Mikey has incredible pressure passing. Pato has great pressure passing. I'm sure Levi is the same way, where they're like, they spend so much time on bottom, they know what good pressure feels like, you know? So when they have the chance to do it, they're like, all over
it. Yeah, they love it. They're chomping at the bit. And I remember Lachlan saying, and now this might have just been to promote Submeta.io, Lachlan's tutorial site or subscription site, but he was saying that he feels like Levi has maybe the best leg drag game in topside leg drag game in jiu-jitsu. And that was literally what he went to on Cade. What he immediately just got right into it. And you could see Cade was like, okay, never mind.
Well, I've heard that like Levi is just so strong. Like you don't realize how strong he is for like a you know, like normally when we think of strong grapplers, we think of like wrestlers and like smash passers, but like Levi is like one of those guys who like plays mostly on bottom, but he's supposed to be just like super strong. And once he gets a hold of you, it's like a problem.
Yeah. He is yoked up now too. That dude is just I remember. Do you remember when he got DQ'd? I think it was in the finals or semifinals. It was a double DQ. I think he had just won one of the majors, and now it was Worlds, and we're like, oh man, the first Australian and to win the Worlds.
He won Pans, Euros, and Brasileiros that year, and he was going for the Grand Slam.
Oh,
he got
that's right. So yeah, he's going for the Grand Slam, and there's a double DQ. I think it was semis or something like that. It was
quarterfinals.
Oh, not even in the semis. So
yeah, he didn't even get to the medal round.
Gosh, so that was absolutely brilliant. But I remember him back then. He was just a skinny bolo kid, and now he walks out with the white rash guard, and I'm like, Luke Rockhold can hold my beer now because Levi's coming out looking like an Adonis. And I have you ever had that scenario with the double guard pull? I mean, I know you're a wrestler, but you've kind of morphed into a guy that has wrestling in his back pocket at all times. But you
Yeah.
seem extremely comfortable in the guard position now, and we see you pull guard often and then wrestle up from there. Have you ever had that scenario where it's you got? I'm not saying DQ'd, but you've gotten a couple negatives, maybe both of you, and you're in that kind of awkward point of like, I have to change my game. Have you ever had that?
Honestly, no. Every time I've like been in a double pull situation and IBJJF, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll just get up, whatever.
Take the advantage and
'Cause I'm like a good passer, so I'll just get on top. I'm really hard to sweep, so I was always like, okay, well then I'll just take my free advantage. Now you won't sweep me,
mm-hmm. Yeah,
you
because
know?
you're immediately taking the lead, and then
Yeah,
you just feel comfortable from there.
I would always rather fight with a lead than be
Yeah,
on the bottom.
I always I there was that match, and I know there's been obviously plenty of others where there's the double guard pull, they play footsie, and then they get stood up. And I always wonder, like, how do you let it get to the third penalty? Like,
Guys are
you know,
just stubborn. They're just stubborn.
yeah. Do you think that's from a competitor's perspective? Do you think that's it's kind of a double edged sword where when you're getting ready for a competition, you shrink jujitsu down, and you're like, okay, this is my A game pass, this is my A game sweep, A game submissions, and this is going to be my goal. I'm going to get into 50-50 and I want to attack from there or whatever your game plan is. That they worked on that specific game so much that when it doesn't work, it's almost like you're not in the gym where if let's say you're going with J-Rod and you got your A game, that's one of your best training partners, so you guys are always doing A game against each other. But in the training room, you're like, okay, well, I'm not getting the foot lock, so I'm going to try wrestling up on J-Rod this time. In the room, you don't feel bad about that. But in the competition, are you is it a mental struggle to get out of your own way?
I think that it used to be for sure. I think that I'm at a point now in my career where I like losing now doesn't hurt the way that it lost. It hurt when I was a lower belt, which doesn't make sense, right? The matches matter more now. But now I'm like, tough.
Yeah, yeah. What was that? How this one was when you almost got the podium?
The bronze medal match, like the match with Jay, didn't really like. I'm not like heartbroken about it because even at the end of the day, it's like the team still made the finals and it was like close. It was close as fuck. It was like ref decision.
Mm-hmm.
The third place match, that one hurt. Because I broke his foot and he just didn't tap and I kind of blew my load like trying to finish the foot lock and I didn't have the gas left. For like 7 more minutes of
Uh,
you know,
what point? I'm gonna have to go back and watch that. At what point did the foot break?
I put him in an Aoki lock and I like ripped it and it just went pop, 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 pop. Like, and I saw his foot later that day. It was like super swollen. Like, I
Okay.
definitely like it worked, but it didn't get me the result that I needed, which was like, and then also too, I was exhausted from the war with Jay, and then like, just my opponent was big and he had good pressure, and it was like, I gassed. So that one kind of sucked, but even still, it's like I don't feel like I didn't give my all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm not like super beat up about it. I'm more just like, okay, I learned that I need to do this for next time. And like, I find that there's not really too much that I can do. And so that goes back to like deviating from the game plan. It's like, I know that I wasn't afraid to wrestle up. I wasn't afraid to like try to break his leg. I, gave it my all. I think that if you're a competitor and you're like, you shouldn't be like afraid to try new things just because it's other people watching, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only difference between training and competition is just people watching.
Right. And they can just get Jedi you basically.
Yeah, exactly.
So what did you learn then? If you you say you kind of like maybe you don't fully like you'll have to think about it more or whatever, but from that experience, you broke a guy's foot or at least heavily damaged a limb. The guy doesn't tap. Remind me who was it again?
Felipe Costa.
Felipe Costa. Okay, that's actually one of my good friends' training partners. That's right. So you learn. Yeah, he used to be like a heavyweight or something like that. He lost a lot of weight for this division.
Yeah, he did. He won the Brazilian trials at 99 and cut down.
Jeez, dude. So what did you learn after going through that? Because I personally I can be a mental midget sometimes where I am just from the lead up to a tournament, I have imposter syndrome. And then I'll start thinking about like, I don't want to let my team down. I don't want to let my friends down. I want to perform well. I suck. All these sort of emotions. So then if I am in the middle of a match and I just, whatever, you're here, pops and cracks and all that. What do you learn from that? Do you learn like you have to rip even harder or what'd you get from that?
What I think that I learned from that is that I need to believe more in the other aspects of my jiu-jitsu. Like not just my leg locks. Like I really believe in my leg locks. Like I think that I'm one of the best leg lockers out there. But sometimes you just get a guy who isn't going to tap into your leg locks, and you need to be like willing and confident that you can still like kind of get it done. And I think that for me, like I fucking foot swept here. My wrestling is good too. I should have just stood up and
That was
tried to,
so sick.
So I think that that's kind of the thing that I take away is like just if one thing doesn't like if you throw your best at somebody and it worked, but I didn't get the result that I wanted. So I think that I should have just moved on to the next aspect of the game and worked from there.
I see. I see. So don't allow that tunnel vision quite as much. And
exactly.
like you said, trust your game, which is really like a basic tournament prep, right? Is don't think about them, what they're going to do. Trust your own work that you've done and what you're going to do. Dude, the hanger foot sweep.
That was like the best moment of my competitive career because I drill foot sweep so much. I've hit them so much in training. And so to finally get one in competition against like a guy who's like a wrestler, was sick.
Oh, no doubt. And Hinger, he's got stingy wrestling. He's been a part of the most boring match in jiu-jitsu history is Wagner, so good on him. And but he's tough as nails. And that was so awesome. I remember when you started working on foot sweeps, you were posting the security cam footage on Twitter. Yep. And when you would get foot swept or when you would completely fail trying one. And like seeing that was awesome because I have a little mini rivalry with old Josh Hinger.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he doesn't know it, but we have it because we're in the same division. We're both Master 3 middle. Well, if he decides to do middle, he's thicky. So I've been like preparing to like go against him at Master Worlds for years now. And it just hasn't happened because he'll jump between middle and medium heavy. And so when you got matched up, when I saw the bracket reveal, I was like, this is my guy, and he's going to beat my rival, and I love it. And I'm a foot sweep guy myself. I didn't wrestle, so I got tired of guard pulling, and like I wanted to have some sort of stand-up game. But wrestling is really freaking hard, man. And like, especially to start in your 30s, it's like, obviously guys have done it, but I didn't have that dog in me. So I went more the judo route. And then like J Flow, like I like how he kind of mixes everything together. And so I started doing that and I fell in love with foot sweeps because I don't know if there's something more beautiful in grappling than a foot sweep.
I think that a foot sweep is like, so judo translates, the word judo translates to the gentle way. And I think that the foot sweep is like the most gentle way to put somebody down. Like it requires the least effort, the least impact. They just fall, you know? It's
Yeah,
like it's the essence of judo, essentially.
totally. And it's like there's something when I teach, I always try to show like little like maybe a wrist lock. I'll throw that in at the end of a technique and be like, if you got this here, there's always this guy right there. And part of the reason I show those is because those are like some of the most embarrassing taps when they have to verbally tap to like this. And there's just nothing more humiliating. And a foot sweep's kind of the same. Like what you said, it's so beautiful, it's so gentle. But when you get hit with a foot sweep, you're like, no, I just slipped on a banana peel. Like
Yeah.
you don't feel it happen. You're just now on your butt, and it could feel like a dummy sweep or something like that. It just feels so stupid. Um, so that
Yeah.
that was absolutely amazing. I literally jumped out of my seat and screamed like a child. Um, but so let's actually talk a little bit about your division. One, I have my notes here because we were going to do a pre-show, and
Yeah.
so I have a lot of notes that were pre-show. And one was I didn't know you were so jacked. I thought you were smaller than me, but you're actually bigger than me. And I was like, holy smokes, this dude's actually a thickie. Um,
I definitely got bigger for ADCC.
okay, you were intentionally trying to put. Oh yeah, because they didn't have enough room in 77, which you would maybe normally do.
Yeah. And now I'm an 88 guy.
For good? Is it done?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm just here now.
Yeah, just living that thick life. So I had a question on here was what was your biggest challenge in the bracket from a style perspective? And that was I had that as a note for prospective of like who you might face. So let's think of it that way of who are you looking at as like that's going to be a really really tough match. Let's and what I can do for people is I will throw up our oh actually I'm going to throw up the bracket on my screen here just so people can kind of see. Oh, that's CJI. How dare you? That's disrespectful. um Actually I don't have the bracket, sorry. So, who were you looking at in your bracket that would have been a really tough match? And then out of the people you faced, who ended up being kind of surprisingly the toughest? And I could imagine it's maybe J Rod, just because it's your teammate. But if it's not, that'd be cool too.
I mean, the toughest was definitely Jay because I've like trained with Jay. Like I trained with Jay so much. We literally like the Monday before we did a 10-minute round from the guard where like the objective was if I entangle on Jay's leg, we start over. And his goal is just to not get put in leg locks. And, you know, we did those the whole camp, you know, because for him, his biggest weakness was getting entangled in leg locks. And if you look at all of his losses at the trials, it was because he got entangled in leg locks. So, like, you know, my strength was the thing that he was working on turning into his strength. And so it wasn't just that he had like thousands of hours of defending leg locks. It's like he had thousands of hours of defending Chris's leg locks, you know. So that was a really tough challenge. And I was trying to do some new stuff in the match. I was trying to attack arm bars. I was trying to like kind of like attack. I tried to attack the legs off the turtle. I was like trying to do a bunch of different stuff that I wouldn't normally do because like we already kind of throw the kitchen sink at each other every day. And so that was definitely the toughest match in hindsight. The Charles Negromonte was really tough. Just hard to do things to, you know. And so I kind of realized about 6 minutes into the match that he was like going to be one of those guys who just wasn't going to let me do anything. And so I just kind of was like, I'm just going to outwork him, and I'm going to win a decision because I'm going to outwork him.
It felt like he really wanted to just make it to overtime and try to win in some sort of, I think if people don't know you, they're going to assume you're a leg locker and that's it.
Yeah.
You had said you feel like you have some of the best leg locks in the game, and I would agree. I would say you're in this interesting tier of some people know you, a lot of people don't, but like you, Jordan Hawley, uh, who's the jabroni guy?
Jabroni, Elijah Carlton.
Yeah, like you guys are in this tier of leg lock murderers that can go toe to toe with like literally anybody, and submit damn near everybody with leg locks, but your name recognition isn't quite there as much. Um, but the difference, I would say, maybe not Jordan as much, but the difference with you is you are a wrestler. You do have a wrestle up game. You have a top game that's lethal. Um, so I wonder if that guy maybe wanted, because it seemed very stally. Like he was just like, let me just kind of get this guy tired. Don't let him do a single thing. And then it felt like just try to get to the overtime round, and then I'm going to wrestle him from there because you're stuck
Yeah,
standing.
yeah. I don't know. He must have not seen the first match because that's what I think.
Yeah. You just immediately like it was butter. It was like what we watch on BT when you guys are doing that stuff to each other on the YouTube page.
Yeah, yeah.
Or what?
I think that like I don't know. The second match was a grinder. Like sometimes you have those matches that you have to win by like because in ADCC action is rewarded. So like even Negromonte's best thing, he got the turtle. Like the only reason he got the turtle is because I wrestled up. So they care where the exchange, who started the exchange, and that was me. So like my goal for that match, once I realized that he wasn't gonna like do anything, I was like, I'm just gonna outwork this guy, and that's like something that you have to learn how to do in that rule set. I think that definitely the hardest match was Jay. The last guy was really tough too, but it was more like I lost. I don't think that he won. I think I lost. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, you felt like maybe you actually had a good opportunity to win. I assume, like
Yeah.
like you were saying, if maybe there wasn't such a tunnel vision, you saw opportunity. You look back and you're like, no, there was opportunity to win that match for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Like that one's gonna hurt to rewatch. The match with Jay won't hurt to rewatch.
Yeah. So, due to boredom, who were you hoping you wouldn't face? Because you knew they were going to be just, ugh.
Well, I think Giancarlo is the match that nobody really wanted. I think that Jay, I think his performance in the finals, I think I'm less scared of Giancarlo. I think going in, I was like kind of like, God, I don't want to go against Giancarlo, but like Jay like looked amazing against Giancarlo. So I think that that's one that I would definitely like. I was really nervous about that. I think another guy who is stylistically not a good match for me is Isaac because he's an outside passer, like a rumble passer, and those guys tend to like just get me tired. And so that was a match that I was also nervous. But then after Negromonte beat Isaac and I beat Negromonte, so my jiu-jitsu math,
And he
so
beat it with a leg lock. So,
yeah, at the very least, I shouldn't be scared of Isaac. So I think that one thing that I took away from this weekend is that I shouldn't be scared of it.
yeah. Like you belong. Like it's like,
Yeah.
I had a similar thing when I won my first uh, black belt just match. It
Mm-hmm.
was a tournament, but there was only one other guy. And he was, I want to
It wasn't
say, he was a second degree. He was a pro MMA fighter. He had
uh-huh.
gnarly brains on his ears. It was like he looked scary, and I got floppy ears, bro. You saw him. I'm good. I got nothing, and I don't look all mean like this guy. And I was like, man, he's been a black belt longer. I've been training. Like, holy smokes! And I go in and I win pretty handily. Like I think it was like 7-2 or something like that. And um, that like immediately was like, no, you are at this level. You should
Yeah.
be here. And it's interesting how either watching or just one match can like really let you know that confidence, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of
I think that I think that that's like a big thing is like the like being able to like now, like the post ADCC like kind of plan is like I'm more like looking to be reaching with matches instead of like settling. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
You know, like I
totally.
don't want to have matches that are like guys who I know I can beat. I would rather have a match with someone that I like might lose because I probably can do better than I think.
Is that, you think, where the direction's going to be for now? Is like, as you try to do, maybe Who's Number One or Polaris or whatever these kind of super fight shows are, like you're going to
Yeah.
try to challenge yourself with opponents that you're like, well, that's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, I think that is like at this point in my career, that's like what I need to be doing, and that's kind of what I would want to be doing. Like I don't really care about like adding my stats. I've never really cared about like, oh, I want to get, win this so I can get like, this fucking BJJ Heroes win or through my record or
Yeah.
I just like for me, and I've kind of realized this like in the last year, like in terms of competition, my goal is really to like chase kind of interesting experiences as opposed to just like kind of like I'm not Gordon Ryan. I don't have a legacy of an undefeated guy who won everything. I would rather just like chase competitive experiences that are like gonna one bring out like the best version of myself, but also two that are just gonna keep me engaged. Like I'm like kind of ADHD. Yeah, it's like I get bored, and I think that like after trials, the only thing that was gonna keep me motivated was like something big like ADCC. Like it's really hard to go from like doing the semifinals of trials to like you know the Naga in town or whatever. It's like it's hard to stay engaged. And so like now after ADCC and after doing honestly better than I thought I was going to do, now the next thing is like, I would like more matches like this, please. That's
Yeah.
cool. My goal is like guys who are going to challenge me.
Yeah. Yeah. You're actually having quite a bit of enjoyment in those tougher matches that really challenge your game.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And I would rather lose a challenge than like win something. Because I've had like in my career, I've had matches and like I've taken matches that are like, oh, this will be easy. I'll get some money. I'll just do this for something to do. And and it's funny too. I did last year. I did the IBJJF Chicago Open, and I was like, I was traveling. I went in for a seminar. I drove like 7 hours the day before the tournament and taught for 4. I was like out all day. And then I was like, my girlfriend was like, you shouldn't do this tournament. You don't even want to do this tournament. And I was like, no, I'll do it. It's fine. And I won, but I like got injured in the match, So it's like now I'm like, I only want to do matches that are going to require like my focus. So I don't, do dumb shit and get injured and
yeah.
shorten my lifespan.
Yeah, for sure. But unnecessary miles that didn't even matter or need to happen on your body.
Yeah. And
Um,
nobody gives a fuck. In hindsight, nobody gives a fuck that I won the Chicago.
that's true. That's true. And we
Like
actually,
even like to me at the time, because I won Chicago Open at blue, purple, brown, and black. And at the time I was like, oh, that's cool. But like now I'm like, why did I even do that? Who gives a fuck?
yeah, and that's something we would say to our students, like as competition is coming, and we'd say, because I remember I did a Tynan seminar,
Mhm.
and after the seminar he was doing like a Q&A, and I went up to him and I asked him, because like I said, I'm a mental midget, especially when it comes to competing, and I said, yeah, and I explained that to him, and he goes, do you think anybody really cares? He just looked at me in my eyeballs. He's like, do you think anybody really cares that you're competing? Your wife's not going to think anything different. Your mom's not going to think anything different. Your training partners don't care. He's like, I think he hadn't won his world championships yet. It was that year of his first one, but it was before he had competed. And he had said, he's like, I compete in front of thousands of people. And if I lose, they don't even bring it up a week later. It's gone. No one cares. No one cares if you win. No one cares if you lose. So stop thinking
I
about it.
think that competing in jiu-jitsu is like, it should be a positive sum game. So like it should be only positive. Like when I lose, like my like, it's like weird saying my like fans, but like, people who like have supported my jujitsu for a long time.
Yeah.
None of them have ever like seen me lose and then been like, oh, I don't like Chris anymore. That's never happened. If anything, people make excuses for me, like I'll lose and I'll be like, oh, sorry guys, didn't have it today. And they'll be like, yeah, the ref fucked you. This happened. And I'm like, it's fine. I'm
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And then like also then a week later, they're just like back to being, supporting me and being down, with whatever I'm doing. I think that the jujitsu community is very forgiving of your losses. This is, it's not like MMA where like Conor McGregor loses to Khabib and we're like, Conor sucks. It's
Yeah.
like in jiu-jitsu, it's like people are more like gonna defend you, and then if you lose, unless you're like someone like Gordon, because Gordon is kind of an asshole. But like if
Yeah.
you're like a pretty good person and like you compete, most people are just gonna want to see you do well, and then when you don't, which is gonna happen sometimes, they're not gonna like freak out. It's
For
gonna be fun.
for sure. And yeah, it's like if Gordon, he kind of stokes the fire. So it's same with Connor a little bit, right? Is people watch them because they like him, but then they also watch because they're hoping to see when he loses.
Yeah.
So it's that odd dynamic. That imagine if you did like you lost and then you notice like your follower count went down by like 300 or something like that. You're just, damn, bro. Which you actually have the opposite. You have an instructional out on, is it on BJJ Fanatics?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
you have an instructional out, and I think you got a notification that after your run at ADCC this weekend, a ton of people are pirating it.
Yeah, I have a friend who like has the ability to. I don't know. I don't even really watch instructionals anymore because I have the guys who made the instructional that I would watch are in the gym, so I don't really need to like watch the instructional because I don't need to watch Nicky Ryan's instructional because I can ask Nicky Ryan when I see him. But like there is a way to pirate instructionals. I'm not going to tell you how to do it because it's bad for business. But the Monday morning after ADCC, my coach texts me. He's like, "Hey man, this guy just let me know that your instructional has been pirated 53 times this morning," which was awesome. I was like, hopefully that means some people also bought it, right?
You would hope so, that at least a couple people maybe bought it from that, and then also maybe like downloaded it and was like, okay, this is good. I'm going to support them and pay the money at BJJ Fanatics.
Yeah.
I mean, that,
Yeah.
especially like, not being like a super big name, like it's not, people should realize that you're not paying $350 like a Danaher one. Like,
Yeah, my instructional is $79 on BJJ Fanatics.
right. And what is it on?
It's called Don't Stand Up. It's about guard retention and guard attacks.
Little play on Craig's.
Yeah. It was a direct response.
That's good. You got to get him to put that on his story or something like that.
Yeah, I know that would be. I rolled with Craig once, like in 2022, like almost 3 years ago, and I've like he's not in the gym at all. I've like seen him once since I've been here.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. He's kind of helped get the gym going as like a face, and just kind of like released it into the wild now. And you guys are all kind of just taking over. I actually had I had you and Ryan Aiken as my dark horse picks to make it to the finals, and I felt like just two guys that had the ability. Now, can they be on their game for, 4 matches? That's going to be kind of what decides that. So I had you guys as my dark horse. I'm just looking at my notes that I had. And then my prediction for the podium was Bodoni, Isaac, and you. And in no particular order, but that's kind of what I was thinking that I could imagine a podium being. This was
Mhm.
before the bracket reveal too, so I didn't know like
Okay. Yeah.
who who was on what side. Um, but with that, my dream matchup, and tell me if this is on your radar. One was J Rod versus Isaac. I thought with the little bit of emotional uh, baggage that could be there, probably more
Yeah.
for Isaac than J Rod, because I don't think J Rod really cares about anything. At least it appears that way. Um, but the emotional thing with Isaac and B Team, and just the styles, because Isaac, what is Isaac's wrestling style? Because it is visually, I know he did some work with a Dagestani guy, but it is visually much more different than your kind of collegiate J Rod, Nicky Rod style.
Yeah, it's like this weird blend of like freestyle wrestling and judo. He spent a lot of time. I don't know Isaac super well. I've met him like twice, but he spent a lot of time training with Jason Nolf, um, and the Penn State. Like he did most of his camp with the Penn State guys.
Mm.
So I think he's like doing this weird blend of like judo and like freestyle wrestling, kind of like that kind of stuff.
Even like
Um,
a little Greco in there, it seems like, because sometimes
yeah,
he won't have that traditional bent at the waist kind of stance. He'll almost kind of like embrace more of a straight up posture kind
yeah.
of stance. My other dream match was you versus Achilles.
Oh, that would be interesting.
I want to see it. That's I
Probably,
know.
probably someday.
Yeah, I could imagine unless he keeps getting bigger. I mean, I
Yeah, so he's also like 17.
yeah.
I saw him in the shower on Sunday. We were talking, or Saturday, and he's like, I was talking. I was like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, you got to talk match with Jay first. And I'm like, yeah, but also, bro, you're fucking 17 years old. You'll be back here like 10 more times. So keep your head up.
Yeah, he's got some time for sure.
Yeah,
How would you address that match? Because he is such a he's kind of, in my opinion, he has like a J Rod wild card thing to him where you don't really know what he's gonna do. Sometimes he can jump on something, kind of like Mika as well. They can just almost explode in a moment and have an arm, a back, a neck, or something like that. Like, how would you address a match with that?
I think that it's interesting that you say that. So Sunday, my girlfriend Myra, she was asking like, why was your match with Jay so slow compared to all of Jay? Like Jay's other matches were all like, and I think part of that is because like we've trained together so much that like we kind of are like both trying to not go into each other's traps,
Mm-hmm.
like. But I think that the other thing is like when you have someone who is so athletic and moves so much, the way that you like what I wanted to do was slow him down, try to make it more of a chess match. And I think if I had Achilles, I would do the same thing. I would try to make it like slower, force him to kind of make a mistake as opposed to like going into his world.
Yeah, that makes sense because it seems like those kind of guys really thrive in the transition in the
Yeah.
unorthodox, which I feel like you do as well. But maybe there's a little bit more thoughtfulness in those positions from like your game compared to theirs. Theirs, it almost seems like there's a little bit of throw caution to the wind and just come out with something awesome. Rather than you, I feel like you do thrive in the transition, but it just appears like kind of like a Mikey Musumeci, where Mikey will look like he's in actually kind of a negative guard position, but from a concept perspective, he's got inside position. His foot, he has connection, on all limbs or something like that. So even though it might look like this looks a little precarious, there's a rhyme to the reason. Rather than those two guys, it's almost like I'm just gonna go.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not really like that. I'm not like a just go kind of grappler. I think that I feel like I thrive more when it's like controlled and I'm able to like outsmart them. as opposed to like trying to out athlete people. Like,
Mm.
especially in a sport, like bro, like fucking steroids are legal. Like I'm not gonna try to just out athlete everybody. I'm gonna try to use my brain.
Yeah, yeah. The
And
so with you had mentioned your girlfriend,
mhm,
and so people that are not on Twitter, or for maybe you are on Twitter and you don't know, but there is a jiu-jitsu scene on Twitter. That's actually how we started talking and kind of communicated a little bit. And it's a small community, but it's not, I don't feel like it's like the rest of Twitter, where you go on Twitter because the world's burning and you kind of just want to watch a car accident, and maybe you want to watch people fight, or maybe that's how you get your news or whatever have you. But I feel like the BJJ Twitter is oddly positive for the most part. It's not a bad community, and it's still so small where you post a lot, so you're a prominent figure within that. We have ATL Rick, which I sniped him with a video on because I saw him in the crowd, and just, random people that contribute. Kevin O'Shaughnessy, he's just got his black belt. He's the guy that teaches up in
oh, yeah,
Portland.
yeah, 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 Kevin. He came to Austin. I trained with him. Yeah,
Yeah,
Kevin's.
exactly. He's a super nice guy. Me and him ran across each other at a tournament, and we had no one to warm up with, so we just started warming up with each other, and that's just from Twitter,
Yeah,
really. Um, but you guys actually met. Am I wrong on Twitter? You and your girlfriend?
that's true. Yeah, yeah, it's always funny. People are like, "Oh, how'd you meet?" Or like, she'll always say, "Oh, we met online," and people are like, "Oh, like Tinder?" She's like, "No, Twitter." Um, and it was just so funny. She was living in San Diego. I was still in Chicago at the time, and then I moved like right after we started dating, and then she moved in April. We did long distance for like a year, and then um, now she's about to come home from work. Now we live together. It was
Yeah,
a sick story.
that's kind of crazy because, like I said, there's a small community. There's a few people that post fairly regularly. She was one of them,
Mhm,
and would just hashtag BJJ Twitter. So then Twitter feeds you whoever's doing that. And
mhm.
I remember she's a white belt, but she blew her knee out or a leg or something, like catastrophic injury.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I think, was that around the time that you guys started dating?
No, it was so she blew her knee out. Well, so when I met Myra, she couldn't walk up the stairs really. So she had surgery, and she was like 4 months post-op when I met her. Um, she blew her knee out in like September of like 2 years ago. And now she's like, it's one of those injuries that I feel like it never is fully like the same. But she's training. She does, she can go to the gym, she can train, she can run, she can do everything that she would do before. But that was kind of how we started interacting. Was like posts about her need or like whatever, and then one thing led to another.
Yeah, that's. I always thought that was kind of cool that like the whole community kind of got to see this like thing kind of start, and it's like I'm watching The Notebook and stuff. It was amazing. Um, but that I wouldn't just give a little shout out to old BJJ Twitter because
Yeah,
they're pretty
Twitter is
supportive.
great. Yeah,
Uh,
Twitter's great. Yeah, Myra's great too. She's like literally my biggest supporter. My, you know, definitely just an incredible woman.
has
Super.
she been able to start training again?
Yeah, yeah. So she's training at a gym. She works for the police department here, so she trains at a gym like right by the police department. And she's back training and doesn't really want to compete again, for odd reasons, but
Yeah.
does not want to have the knee injury. She her first competition, she dislocated her shoulder, and then her second competition, she blew out her knee. She's like, maybe this is not for me.
I'm out. I'm out.
She won gold though. She's like tough as hell. Most people don't know that because she's so sweet, but she like dislocated her shoulder and still won. She's like super tough.
Dude, I'm going home with an ice cream after that. I'm not even coming close to finishing. That was
Yeah,
crazy.
crazy.
I always think that stuff's kind of cool when like when people come together through the sport. And it's like it's also not traditional. Like obviously, you have people that might start dating at the gym, which is always a little risque. Um, but like an orthodox connection is pretty awesome. Um,
Yeah, definitely.
I want to touch base with you on the CJI versus ADCC because obviously this is like the drama, the gossip, the what everyone's talking about. And I guess, do you think that the two can coexist? Like that we can have two massively premier events um, at this? I want to say at the same time because I don't think CGI will try to put it on the same weekend every single time. That would be kind of shitty.
Yeah.
But do you think that they can both exist, or do you think that there's going to be because like we see it with One FC, where they lock in some of their guys to exclusive contracts, and they have to, I assume, work in some sort of exemption, like the Rotolos did. Like I think Mikey actually did as well. I think the reason Tynan hasn't, I think he got out of the contract because he never actually fought for one, and same with Pato, like he has some sort of exemption. So, do you think that they can both exist?
I think it's going to be really interesting to see kind of what happens next. I think that CJI went like I think going into CJI we were all like, oh, this could be cool, but I don't know, is it going to work? And I think it worked. I think that it was super successful. And so I definitely think we're probably going to see another CJI, at least one more, maybe two, maybe more. That would be awesome if we're still seeing CJI 10 years from now. But I don't know, like, what it's going to mean for ADCC. I don't know if it's going to mean that we're going to always have CJI on the same weekend as ADCC to try to push ADCC out of business or what's going to happen. But I think that what I do know is that it's so good for the sport. Like, not even just like the fact that it is like happening, like the fact that CGI is happening, but like the competition. Like this is the first year ADCC is paying show money, because of CGI. So it's like the sport is just growing so much, and it's because of the competition. So that I'm really happy about. I would love to see them keep duking it out because it benefits the athletes and it benefits the fans.
Yeah, I mean, the immediate response from ADCC was show money and upping the females to match the winner. The grand prize matches the males, and that was like two immediate changes that happened. Are you allowed to disclose your show money? Like just
They're supposed to come this week, so I actually don't know yet. And also, too, they're supposed to pay for fourth as well. So I don't know exactly how much I'm going to get paid. But Mo is like this week supposed to contact everybody and handle
hmm.
me everything.
Hey, did you hear the similar stuff that was going around about like certain people get more show money than others?
Yes, I heard that they do secrets show money for some guys.
Yeah. You're like, how do I get that?
And I'm like, and like I'll take the secret show money. I'll take
Yeah,
that one. I'll have what he's having.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but I don't like. I don't know. It is a little bit weird for sure. I don't know, like but also too, it's like that's kind of like where we're at in jujitsu is like we don't have like a governing body. Like we have a sheik in Abu Dhabi who's paying people, and then we have like some secret guy from Craig Jones's contacts list who's paying people, and that's what we've got. So it's kind of like it's not Major League Baseball. It's not the UFC. We're like kind of like in this weird like becoming professional, but not quite there. So it's still the Wild West. So it'll be like it's kind of weird. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but it's really cool to be a part of.
Do you know who the secret donor is?
No,
Not at all.
no, I know. They're really like keeping it under wraps. Um,
Yeah. I mean, how Craig explained it, how the guy or person or whatever doesn't want any. not just like backlash, but just doesn't want any focus on them. He wants focus on the event and stuff like that. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you see it with ADCC. You know, there's Mo has to always address that like he doesn't get final say. It has to be the Sheik, and like that's impossible to do and get
Yeah, well,
everything.
I think that so when I got my spot at ADCC, it was like I was talking to Mo, and Mo is like, "Hey, I have to talk to Abu Dhabi first before I can give you the spot." And I'm like, "Okay, well, let me know what Abu Dhabi says. I don't know what like who there. I'm sure there's, but then like also too, when I had my flights booked, it was like someone not Mo. It was someone from Abu Dhabi, and I had to talk to somebody else in Abu Dhabi to like confirm my spot in the tournament. So like Mo is the face of ADCC, and he has a lot of say, but also there's other people who are a part of the organization.
Right. What do you make of all the, what we call the fafoka? That's the gossip, the drama. Uh, wh- do you like it? Do you hate it, or do you just kind of stay away from it? Like, for
I mean,
example,
I'm not really involved in any of it. Like, I mean, I'm at B team, but like the drama is with Craig, and Craig is not at B team. You know?
I mean more so from a, so like for example, I have, so fofoca in Portuguese that just means gossip,
Okay.
and I have a little fofoca group of training partners where it's four of us, and it's like Real Housewives of Jiu-Jitsu basically,
Uh-huh.
and we just talk about all the nitty gritties. We're like literally a sewing circle, just drinking tea, and it's nice because it's a very diverse. We have one guy, he's an immigrant Russian. We have a trans Hawaiian. We have me, and then we have a Irish guy that's very offensive. So we really round out the community, I think. And obviously, I bring the autism to the table too. So it's like, so we love it. We now the there's certain gossip we don't like, the whole fight sports thing. Remember a couple of years ago, that's pretty icky. Don't want to touch it. The stuff that Craig's kind of poking at with Gordon and Sonny, and I don't even want to go down that road. And we'll save you any questions on that, so we don't have to have that weird one. Um, but from a fan perspective, are you entertained? Do you like it? Is it kind of cool, or are you just like, I don't want any of that?
I mean, I think it's cool. I think it's actually good for the sport. Like, even though it kind of like, because the problem with jujitsu, I feel like, is not that people don't like it, it's that people don't know about it. And I think that for the longest time, like, the like jujitsu world champions were just boring. Like they're like, oh, I thank God, I thank my training partners, and now we've got Craig Jones fighting a woman in a pit with a fake Brazilian guy screaming at him. Like we've come a long way in terms of, and the match kind of felt WWE ish, but like there were like you saw the YouTube stats, they had like 3 million people watch over the
Yeah,
course of the weekend. That is like more eyes on jujitsu than I think ever, right?
yeah,
So that's like it's just good for growing the sport, and we're in an era in jujitsu where we need growth. We don't need like everything to be kind of perfect anymore, you know?
yeah, yeah, for sure. That I love that everyone booed Craig when he ripped his pants off and then he started putting shorts on.
Yeah,
At the same time,
that
I
was
was thinking
wild.
about, yeah, I was thinking about leg entries and him inverting to like a matrix or something like that. Like there could be some mishaps going on there.
Yeah.
I was pretty shocked that she didn't oil check him a couple times. Like,
Apparently in the crowd, people were screaming for her to oil check him.
yeah, yeah, because his beehole was right there. I mean, she was
Yeah.
looking into that thing like she was Luke Skywalker looking into the sand thing.
I
So, uh, with CJI, what do you think about the pit
think it's
or
cool. I actually,
the alley?
so the alley or whatever. So before CJI, I did like, during the camp, the way it worked was Dima would like choose our partners, and he would tell you ADCC or CJI. Then he would set the timer for 16 minutes and 30 seconds, and CJI would do 3 5-minute rounds with a 30-second break, and ADCC would do 3 5-minute and 30-second rounds with a points, no points, and overtime period. And so like he would just pick your partners, and you would either do CJI or ADCC, and like he would be like, Chris, you're going with Kenta, do ADCC today, or you're going with Kenta, do CJI, or you're going with Joseph, do ADCC, do C, whatever. So like towards the end, when we got the pit, he would be like, okay, I want you guys to go up on the wall. So I got to train on the pit a little bit, but what I found was like I was mostly just kind of doing my normal game in the pit, you know. And then now that it's over this week, I've been like kind of playing with the pit because we still got it set up. I'm assuming they're going to keep it because it's like now it might be the future of the sport, and it's like really fun. And I think that watching the tackets use it, it's like there's a lot of cool shit that you can do off the pit that I think is going to be explored. And there's going to be like a new meta of like pit grappling that's going to happen, which is really cool. And like no one was expecting that to happen, I think.
Yeah, I think kind of like you or MMA wall wrestling. It's its own thing that is unique to MMA, and but it's become something that you can literally win championships on.
Yeah, exactly. So
So, would you say now from a spectator? I went to CJI and ADCC. The pit or alley seemed phenomenal. I was super skeptical. I've watched Karate Combat. Yeah, there's like some kind of crazy things you can do, like when Craig triangled the guy off of it, but it seemed like it was almost more of a hassle to deal with from a grappler. But after watching multiple grappling matches in a row, it's I don't see a negative, honestly. Without having the resets, and which are always controversial, um, with not having slowing down the matches, with ADC or any jiu-jitsu match, it's like a 10-minute match will be 15 or more just because of having resets and trying to figure all that kind of crap out. So it
yeah,
took all of that away. And then the fun side, yeah, the creativity of some of these guys using the angled walls. It seemed like, I don't know, it seemed like a win-win.
yeah, I thought it was really cool, and I think it'll be cool to see what happens next with it.
Yeah, I was thinking like for improvement on CGI is doing two of them. And like maybe in the finals you could, make it so people are only in one. But like for example, the thing that really kind of crushed like it putting the fat guys first on day one, and like that just crushed the momentum. So like,
Yeah,
they're just historically always big guys are not as fun to watch, and unless you get like a Tackett in there, and then um, or like even a Victor Hugo, he could be fun to watch, or maybe even a Marigali at times. But for the most part, big guys aren't that fun. And then so Victor gets heel hooked, and it's like, holy smokes, this is the craziest upset ever. And then all the energy gets sucked out of the room with the next match, which is like really, really shitty wrestling, basically.
yeah,
Just hand fighting and collar ties. Um, so I think if we had two side by side, that could actually kind of help with that, and also make it so we're not, you guys and us, we're not in the venue for 8+ hours. And then also, this was an oversight, I think, probably by Craig, is they didn't let anybody leave the venue. You couldn't leave and come back.
Oh yeah, I was told that because my coach he had pit side seats on both days, and he left on Friday to go to ADCC to get the coach's pass for Saturday and Sunday, but then we couldn't go back, so we just like that's it.
Yeah, and that first day was really long, and it, you're just all you have is concession food, which is really, really bad. The worst acai bowl I've ever had in my life. And then the whether you want to go to the bathroom, whether you want to get water, you not spend $10 on a bottle or something like that. Like
Yeah.
it, and I remember at Thomas and Mack last ADCC that you could come and go. So I think it
Mhm.
was a venue, and we looked it up on T-Mobile at T-Mobile because we were like, oh my gosh, we don't want to have to deal with that again. We were going to come late if T-Mobile didn't allow it, and T-Mobile had the same rule: you cannot leave the venue unless the event organizers say it's okay. So I assume that's the default rule, unless, let's say, Mo Jassam or Craig or Seth, whoever the person that's organizing that stuff, kind of puts in there, hey, I want the fans to be able to leave and come back. Like they have to kind of address that, I think, for it to be possible.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that that was kind of the only like I heard the second day of CJI was incredible. I think the first day was too long, and the second day was like they killed it.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And you could tell they addressed some of the pacing issues at CGI. Like the things that I think CGI could really improve on is the pacing, because in the first day we timed it. They were doing 15 minutes in between matches, which was like, that makes no sense. Like you don't, not, it's just not necessary. Probably also having interviews after every match in the early rounds, probably not necessary. Like
Yeah,
save the mat or the post match interviews for like maybe quarters and semis, or I would say probably semis and finals, um, just to keep the flow going. Probably add another mat, and then out of nowhere, because I really came out of this after the first, or after 2022, after 2024 ADCC, and after CJI. I think tournament flow is almost more important than fireworks, lasers, screens, uh, Bruce Buffer. Like, if you can get your fans to only spend 4 or 5 hours in the venue, I think that's so much more valuable.
yeah,
Just
definitely.
just from a visual perspective. And also another thing is $1 million didn't make anyone fight any harder, I don't think. Cool gimmick. Like,
Yeah,
I'm happy that fighters are getting that. I think that's awesome. But I don't think anybody fought any harder. I don't, because that was the thing, is like, who's gonna let their leg break? Like, everyone's gonna let their legs break for $5 million or $1 million, or they're gonna go unconscious or something like that. No, Philippe
yeah,
Andrew tapped
and
out
that,
within 2 seconds. Once Nikki grabbed his neck, it was like it was done. Um, so I think that'll be cool to see how they address some of those things,
mhm,
and even, like, let's say they don't do $1 million, and they expand the brackets, as in they do, maybe you split that 80 kilo up into like two, so you can get the guys like Pato and Diogo and all those kind of small guys where it wouldn't really make sense to go against someone your size.
yeah,
I'm sure those guys are down. They did the absolute, but I think just from a uh, perspective of someone watching, if we had like 70 to 80 kilo, and then 70 and under, and then throw in a female bracket or something like that, it's like the smaller females too, like 65 kilo and under, or 60, whatever it is. Like that could,
yeah,
and then you give them 500 grand for the winner.
yeah. I mean, 500 grand is still like for a grappler. That's incredible.
Oh yeah, you're more money than you. I remember you had brought up, like, when you won some money. I remember when I won $150 after a tournament, and I was like, "Does this make me a pro? Am I like a pro grappler now?" Like, it just felt so cool to, like. It cost me $70 to enter, and I got my scones paid for after. Like, it felt freaking amazing. Um, what's your perspective on the CGI rule set? This 5 rounds. There's 3 judges. They uh, give who's, like, how they scored it right in between rounds. Um, what do you think about that? Do you like this structure initially? Do you hate it? Do you think it's better than, let's say, the 10-minute ADCC thing? What do you think?
I think that I think it would be cool if they did like ADCC points, but in a pit.
Mm.
Because I feel like being like the problem is sub only matches will always kind of be more boring than like matches where people are like forced to act to score, you know?
Yeah, because it makes you want, like, to. So this is what my professor would always say. He my coach. He would we would always disagree a little, just a little bit, like not nothing crazy. And I would be like, man, I like when dudes just go after it. And then he's like, yeah, but points makes it so, like, I have to fight for my life not to concede. Like,
Yeah,
which creates action, which creates transitions, which creates cool submissions, and just the fight keeps going rather than like, okay, don't push too hard right now to like not allow side control. Just allow side control because as it turns out, side control is like a lot, especially if you have a wrestling base. Like you're gonna get out of a lot of side controls. It's not you're not scared
yeah,
of side control. Um,
yeah, definitely. I think that, but also too, I think the athletes really make the fucking the athletes make the match. You know, not like if you look at Tackett and Cade would have had a war in any rule set. You know, so I think that that's just kind of the truth. It's like it's really down to the athletes. I don't think any rule set is going to incentivize more action. Um, I think that CGI or CJI they try to make it as free as possible, but I hope that as the event goes on, they add a little bit.
yeah, I think there's going to be right now everyone's buzzing about the 3 rounds and all that kind of stuff. One, I think they shouldn't have 3 judges. That's stupid in boxing and MMA. I think they should have 5. Um, I like that they use like legit dudes though, like J
Yeah,
Flow and stuff like that. I think that was smart.
yeah, I
Um,
all those guys actually.
yeah, that it was good to have like experienced people from all kind of walks of life too. Whether Miha and then a 10th Planet guy and then J Flow. Um, but I think everyone's buzzing about it, the rule set right now, just like in EBI. When EBI came out, they're like, this is the new rule set. This is going to change jiu-jitsu completely. When it was like, well, until someone learns how to game it, and then you got the guys that only want to get to overtime because there's no chance they're going to get your back or get you in, spider web. So they
Yeah,
just stall out till the end.
yeah,
Um, so I think that there will be something like that where a lot of people are pretty pumped for the rule set now. But I totally agree, man. It's all about the fighters, right? Like it's all about the personalities going, like just coming and throwing caution to the wind, and just being willing to, honestly, like you're not afraid to lose.
yeah.
That's like a big thing with CGI. Did you watch the finals? Cade versus
Yes.
Levi.
Hmm.
Don't be shy. If you need to take your shirt off, do it. Who won?
So I think Cade won. Um, I think
Explain.
I think that, but also too, like my coach Jeff, he was there. He said that like a lot of people in the VIP section were Atos, and they were really cheering for Cade, and he thinks that swayed the judging.
I've heard similar because I don't know if this came through on the feed or not, but when Cade would get like a really crappy toe hold that he has no connection to the hips, or
Hmm.
he's not locking the limb down at all. He's just, like the thing you hated about 50-50 is I'm going to get an advantage by doing this completely pointless toe hold.
Yeah,
um, and the crowd went nuts, or it sounded like the crowd did, but it was, yeah, like the Autos conglomerate. And we were thinking that it was maybe something similar where that kind of swayed people to be like, that was a real sub, when it's like you're talking about a bolo guy that has probably meow style ankles, it's not doing anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
But the other thing is like, I think that in general, like for like what I was taught is like if a guy pulls guard and doesn't get the back or get like a sweep, then the top player wins. And I can't remember, but I don't remember seeing a ton of like I think I don't think Levi got to the back except for when Cade was like giving him the back, you know?
yeah, and then he cartwheeled out.
Yeah, and it was like, okay, so he's not really getting the back. So, I don't know. It was like getting weird because it was like after like 20 minutes, like I feel like grappling matches shouldn't be too long. Like this is kind of my main critique of ADCC too. Like 20 minutes is too long.
Yeah.
When we were training, we would do every Saturday, or so we did Friday, Saturday, we did comp simulation. So Friday was like a fucking two 15-minute rounds, but they were like with pros, And then
Mhm.
Saturday was a 15 and then a 30-minute round. I don't know if you
Mhm.
ever done a 30-minute round like competition, but it was just like after 20 minutes, you're like, okay, we get it. This we've been in half guard like 30 times by now.
Yeah, it's almost not
It's
almost.
too
It's boring. Like it's
It is boring. It's like too long.
yeah, I totally agree. I feel one. I don't like the first half no points thing. I know I get the theory of it, and I oddly agree with the theory, which is, well, you can throw caution to the wind. You don't got to worry about scores. You can just attack, attack, attack. And I think that makes sense. But humans do not do that. We People do not go caution to the wind for the first 5 or 10 minutes. They actually kind of conserve energy, and it ends up being a boring first 5-10 minutes, and then you're totally right. I think with the length, I don't hate a 6 or 7 minute match for pros. I think you guys have such good gas tanks and the ability to, uh, except for Nikki Ryan, obviously, and Craig,
Or
uh, is you guys can pace yourselves to a point where if you really wanted to roll like for an hour or something, you could. Um, so pushing you guys to actually have to like and that's where the points thing comes in, not having a no points period. It's like, okay, no, if a guy gets 2 points on me right out the gate, I have to work my ass off because I only got 5 minutes now because a minute already went by, or it's gonna, I feel like that promotes what the events are trying to do, and that's get you guys to like really be active. I feel like that would be the way to do it, is shortening and then adding points.
I think that for like trials rules are my favorite rules. It's 6 minutes, 3 minutes points, 3 minutes no points, 3 minute overtime. Um, that's like my favorite rule set. But like,
Yeah.
though like 15 is not 10 minutes with a 5 minute overtime, not too bad. But like
Mhm.
20 minutes, oh, it's too long.
Yeah. So what about, okay, so the ADCC, the passing thing. Was it 75% of your body has to be pinned to the ground or something like this? Um, to me, I get it, but at the same time, it feels like the whole like being able to negate a takedown by turtling, being able to negate a, a pass by just going like this is like, even though maybe you got that hip lock down, you got, a short hook, but if they're just like this, no points. That drives me bananas. I literally looked at my dog and told him I don't love him because I was so mad a couple times. And uh, from a competitor, I like you said, your favorite rule set is an ADCC rule set. What do you think about that part? I mean, do you think that should be adjusted? Because I think from like a competitive perspective, and then also from like, how should I say it? Getting points. Like soccer is awesome, and hockey can be awesome, but scoring is so rare that it can make these sports boring. Now hockey throws in fights, so we get entertained. uh, and I guess that's what I think about is like you can watch the whole first round of ADCC and there's no one that scored a point at the in the first round of the tournament, and scoring is like super rare. Now, obviously, we have the best going against each other, but it seems like if they maybe loosen that a little bit, it could be beneficial. What do you think?
So I think that I like the turtle not being a score because I think that's the equalizer for the jujitsu guy against like the really good wrestler. Because I think that if because ADCC is not a wrestling tournament and it's not technically a jujitsu tournament, it's a submission wrestling tournament. So like the fact that the turtle is not a score, I like. I do think some of the times it gets kind of stupid. Sometimes it gets kind of stupid when they're like on their side and it's like it's kind of a score, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But like I think I like the turtle part because I think that is like otherwise it's like ADCC would just be dominated by wrestlers because you would just take people down and then if the wrestler just learned how to not get submitted, that would be it.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. If you take, let's say I get a mat return, I arm drag you, get to your hips, do a mat return,
Mhm.
and then you pop off your hip to turtle. Now I'm just in like a side ride kind of thing. Is those takedown points are negated, right?
So if you do a mat return, I turtle for 3 seconds and then I sit to my side, then it's no points. Or a side control, no points.
What if you just sat in turtle?
Like we just stayed in turtle.
Yeah, like I boom, I get you, and then you're just tight and you just stayed in a turtle, and I can't really do anything for 10 seconds.
Then so it's nothing if I score or if it's nothing unless you get the back.
Okay, so no takedown points. Those are gone. I would have to get you down to the ground and then get you onto your side or your back to get takedown points.
Yes.
Okay. Now when you go to your, let's say I get you down to your side, like mat return, you're facing away from me. You're not quite turtled. I'm blocking the hip. Um, just kind of, you're almost taking the back kind of thing. Uh, and then you do a big shrimp and then square up. Is that going to be a takedown point?
Is it 3 seconds?
Let's say it took more than 3 seconds.
Then no points.
No takedown points.
No. But if it's less than 3 seconds, then it is points.
I feel like that sucks.
I think that they should make it 5 seconds. I think sometimes 3 seconds is too short.
Right. I guess part of me thinks like if I arm drag you, I get those hips, I mat return or whatever, a foot sweep even. Like actually, you and Josh, you foot swept him, and he kind of landed flat, I guess, and you like.
I think that would have been takedown points actually. If you look at that one again, so I think that he just had to guard because it was no points.
It was in the very beginning.
It was in the no points period.
Yeah. So in that scenario, you foot swept him. I feel like if he's on his side for 5 seconds, that's a takedown. I would think like that should be considered takedown because you just changed the match from standing to ground. That would be like that's the goal of a takedown.
Can you give me 1 second? I lock
Yeah.
her out.
Oh yeah. So what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna bring up all the juicy gossip while he's gone, and I'm gonna take my shirt off and my pants. So when he comes back, I'm just gonna be in my undies, my Superman undies, and then we're just gonna see how he reacts.
Yo, sorry about that. Yeah, she's standing up. It's 110 degrees here.
Oh yeah. In Phoenix, I think we're less than you. We're only at 100.
Oh, it's not hot. It's a hot one here right now. It's like
Yeah. So I guess that's kind of my thing is I feel like if you change where the match is happening, I would think it should count for a takedown. I guess I don't really understand the thought of why that wouldn't be. Do you know?
I think that it's just kind of the rules that they came up with. I think that they wanted it. They want to blend jujitsu with wrestling,
Hmm. And
and
just
so
kind
I
of,
think that by it's like you can wrestle, but you can also game it a little bit.
yeah. I mean, it does make sense. I think so many of us got used to. We came up with, we would watch ADCC once every 2 years, and then we would watch all the IBJJF stuff throughout the year, or even compete at your local tournament in a similar rule set. So it becomes so jarring when it's so different that
Mhm.
a lot of us get like sassy pants about it because we're like, I don't understand. Why is it not a takedown? Because it's like when you do anything. Like I've tried to learn Portuguese probably 14 times,
Mhm.
and it's because I do it for 2 weeks, and then I come back to it 3 months later, and I'm like, why am I not getting better? I don't understand this, and you know, because we're just kind of forgetting stuff.
Yeah, I
But
think. Well, I think that there's just a bunch of different rule sets, and it's they all have different benefits, and you should learn. You should really learn all of them. But like,
yeah,
just for the one that we did last week was that's how it goes.
yeah. How? What would you say? Just to change gears a little bit, who would you say the best person you've ever rolled with is?
Craig Jones.
In what way? Like from a technical perspective or like
Felt stupid.
creativity?
Just felt stupid.
It's funny because he seems like from what you hear, he's like when he clamps onto something, it's like the scariest clamp ever.
Yeah, and this was a few years ago when I left rolled with Craig last, and he was just like still training every day, and like he was like really kind of killing it.
Yeah. So he's like kind of peak form almost.
Yeah.
Have you ever got to roll with like Mika or Pato?
No, I've rolled with Dante a lot, no, but never Mika or Depato.
Yeah. It seems like they would be uh like I feel like someone like Craig and that top of the food chain kind of guys. Um they're obviously extremely good. It seems like someone like Pato and let's say Mika and those kind of guys that are very dynamic and very attacking, which I would say Craig is. Craig just wants to humiliate you though with some weird submission, rather than those guys are just going to try to break you.
Mhm.
Um, but I feel like those kind of dudes would be some of the funner roles to go with. Just kind of like Craig, where it's like because you get to have some freedom. They're not going to
Yeah.
be like a Jonatas Gracie. Like that guy looks horrible to roll with because he looks heavy and strong and he doesn't move a lot.
Yeah.
But these other guys, they're kind of willing to actually like do jujitsu.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Roll with Pato.
yeah. Who's your biggest influence in jujitsu?
Pato, Craig, my original coach Jeff. Um, J Flow has influenced me a lot. Keenan.
Have you ever got to roll with J Flow?
Yeah. Yeah. J Flow's. I've done wrestling rounds with J Flow. Never like jujitsu, but like
Is it how it looks online?
it's just chaotic because he moves so much.
Especially for an older dude. Like
Yeah.
that guy's in his 40s, I believe, right?
Yeah. Yeah. J Flow's really good. Really
I mean,
talented.
it's like amazing to see that. Like sometimes you don't know if he's kind of like the Craig Jones of stand up. Like he's gonna hit you with some goofy shit that you're just like, well, what happened there?
Yeah. Basically, yeah, he's.
What is I asked this when we have we've done a series where we have black belts on and we ask them questions, and we've had blue belts and we ask them the same stuff. Um, what's the hardest match you've ever had? Any level, but one that sticks out and you're like, that one challenged me the most?
That I won or that I lost?
Either.
I think the most tired I've ever been after a match was I had a match with Andrew Tackett like 3 years ago, 2 years ago. He beat me in EBI overtime, and I was just like so spent after that match.
What about from a technical perspective?
Technical perspective,
One that really challenged, like almost, I guess it would be more of a mental challenge than anything because you're trying to keep up
yeah,
that
it's weird to
quickly.
think. I'm trying to think about like the most kind of crafty guys who I've gone against. I don't know. I mean, I had a match with that kid Jet Thompson. He was real technical, real crafty. I had a match with William Tackett, another really like technical guy. Um, those are like the kind of matches that are like really challenging. But I think that what makes a match challenging is like that it's not the technique. Like if you train, you should know all the techniques. It's like getting tired, you know.
Yeah, yeah. It is from a competition standpoint now, kind of taking yourself out of the pro mindset and more into like your quote unquote hobbyist and stuff like that. What's what do you recommend for? And you've written about this too. And like I said, go to Grappler's Diary. Um, you're he writes about all these kind of taboo subjects and not taboo because we talk about I'm an open book about like mental struggles and all that kind of stuff but when it comes to competition from a hobbyist perspective, someone that really struggles to like they want to compete but they beat themselves up, they have imposter syndrome, they worry about everything like going wrong and what's going to happen. What's your recommendation to someone like that? Because you've competed obviously in wrestling in high school, and then all the way through like when you're not a pro, you're at the lower belts, but you're trying to like do it, and then you fully commit to being a pro. So kind of throughout that path, like what would you recommend to someone like that?
I think that the three most important things are to set realistic goals so that you're like, not like expecting yourself to have this like professional level of jujitsu when you're not putting in professional effort. And that's not like to be like an asshole. That's just like being
Yeah.
realistic is important.
If you
Um,
train 3 days a week, don't
yeah,
expect you're going to be a
yeah,
massive killer.
yeah. And then I think that too, like having fun with it, because for most people, it's like competing in jiu-jitsu is supposed to be like a fun experience. And if you can't have fun with it, go do something else that you can have fun with. Um, and then the last thing would be just consistency. Like if you want to be good with the competing, like you have to do it a lot. You have to like get like every month or every couple months or say like 6 times a year, whatever you want to do. But like if you want to like succeed in competition, you have to compete. You can't just say that you want to succeed in competition. So I
do
think that realistic expectations, consistency, and then like remembering that you're supposed to have fun with it.
do you still get nervous before tournaments?
Yep, yep.
Like the butterflies, not
They,
ADCC.
they get like really clammy. It's like the whole thing. But you just kind of learn to deal with it. It's
What are you mentally doing in when you, let's say you're dry, we're taking ADCC out, like that's an obvious tournament that's like everyone's going to have some sort of butterflies. Maybe it's a smaller tournament, maybe whatever. But when you're like driving to the venue or it's the night before and you're laying in bed and you feel the heart starts da, 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 da. What are you telling yourself? What uh, to get to calm yourself in that time?
I try to just not think about it. I try to just like think about not the competition. Like I watch TV or like do something that is not jujitsu, or not think about something that's not jujitsu. Um, and like I usually just forget that I'm competing tomorrow. Like ADCC, I didn't even think I was like it was like we did the weigh-ins and it was all exciting and you saw everybody and the adrenaline gets going and then we kind of got back to the hotel room and then I like put on like we put on Seinfeld or something dumb, and just had some dinner and relaxed, and then I slept really good. I didn't even think about the tournament until the next day when I woke up, and I was like, oh shit, it's here, and that's the same for any tournament.
How about the? I mean, going to ADC. How about the in between day where you just made it to day two, and like there's obviously a high there, but there's still
Yeah,
more work.
luckily I had been in that position before because I've done the trials so many times, and made day two of the trials, and especially the first time I made day two of the trials, I beat Cody Steele, who was like the 2 seed, and I wasn't supposed to, so I knew what it was like to make a deeper run than you're expected to. And so I just kind of was like, okay, it's just like that. So I kind of did the same thing that I did. I got some food, hung out, and try the tried to like have it's like a balance of like trying to enjoy yourself, but also like you're still like knowing that the job that you've set out to do is still not done.
Yeah. What What's the most painful loss you've ever had in jiu-jitsu?
I don't know. Definitely the early ones. Like all the losses recently don't really hurt as bad. Actually, no, no, no. East Coast Trials. I lost at East Coast Trials, and that was a tough one.
Who was that to?
I lost to Cody, and so I beat
Oh,
him before, and then I lost, and then also I cut to 77 for that one. That was the last time I cut weight, and it was like I felt like I wasted my time a little bit because I did better at 88. I was like I should have just done 88, and not put my body through that, and I didn't really perform very well.
what made it hurt? What made that one hurt so bad?
I think that I expected myself to podium, and I didn't. And just expectations were much higher, and I was like also too like it was like life was a little different then, so it's like I was just like more kind of exhausted, and higher expectations plus higher stress leads to a bigger, a more painful feeling when it doesn't work out.
What that look like when you lose that match? Obviously, you're probably pretty tore up.
Mhm.
What does that look like? How do you get out of that hole that you were probably in?
I feel like it just passes. There's not really a thing that you can do that's going to make it. It's kind of like a breakup. It's like you don't really like do anything that makes it better. It just kind of gets better.
And kind of knowing that it will get better is probably a kind of a key to that success of like
Yes,
not.
definitely that as well. Like knowing like I've been here before and I will get past this.
Yeah. Is that kind of similar to you had a little bit of a letdown with the almost getting on the podium there?
Yeah,
Um,
definitely the same thing. Like, yeah, it sucks and I'm not happy about it, but also like I've been through worse experiences than this. There's like I have a lot to be grateful for.
do you do a lot of positive self-talk?
I mean, I try to. I feel like at this point it's pretty natural, so I kind of just am like pretty positive. Um, I definitely will beat myself up when things don't go well, and so like when things don't go well, I just make a more kind of concentrated effort to be more positive.
There, there's a book that's out there. It was the performance coach for Russell Wilson, the quarterback, football player, and he's like a notoriously super positive guy. And the the performance coach talked to him about having positive self talk, but not just positive, but what they call neutral comments. So not necessarily saying I'm the best ever or something like that, but it's more neutral statements that can be like I'm going to focus on this or I'm going to focus on that, like something that's positive, but isn't necessarily almost like overly like it's hard to explain. Um, but it seems like that is a pretty beneficial way to go about things to where you're not necessarily talking about that you're going to I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get to my position here. It's more I've prepared. I am confident. I trust my cardio. It's almost like you're just kind of building yourself up kind of thing in a neutral way. Um, do you do anything like that or have you?
Um, I don't know. I maybe I don't really think about it like that. I more so try to focus on like kind of like just knowing like okay, I've done the I kind of I'm more matter. I guess so, but I'm more matter of fact about kind of like what I'll tell myself. Like done the work. I belong here. I'm going to like I'm happy to be here. I'm grateful, and you know I'm lucky to have this experience. And from that, I feel like a lot of the anxiety that I feel kind of dissipates, and I start to just feel like normal.
Yeah.
Does that make
Um,
sense?
oh yeah, no, absolutely. And kind of one of the last things here is your when was your birthday? It was in August, wasn't it?
Yep, August 7th.
You want to know something crazy? Your boy's birthday is August 7th. Oh my gosh. I mean, take your shirt off. I'll do it too. The um this whole time I haven't even had pants on. It's just how I roll. Well, man, we got 2 hours in the bag, just like that. Uh, Thank you for coming on and talking. We didn't even really talk like a ton about like I had so many notes. We didn't even talk about a ton of stuff. So maybe at some point we could have you on again and just chop it up about random stuff and promote.
Yeah.
Yeah, promote anything that you got. Why don't you let people know how they can follow you, where they can find you, and we'll wrap up.
Yeah. Okay. So, Chris M. Wojcik, Wojcik is my thing on all the social medias. The Grappler's Diary is my Instagram, or one of my Instagrams and my Substack. And that's pretty much it. Just follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and check out the newsletter. Definitely check out the newsletter. That's kind of what I always try to plug. And it's it. Thank you
And
so much for doing me. It's fun.
absolutely, and he does have that instructional on BJJ
Oh yeah, yeah.
Fanatics.
Don't stand up.
Yeah, don't stand up and don't pirate it, you dirty fuckers.
Yeah.
Um, and if you guys do have questions, obviously for Chris or myself or the weird, creepy, freaking pervert there, Chris Hardy, Dr. Chris Hardy, if you guys have questions, grapplingwithpodcast@gmail.com. You can send us any of those. Maybe we'll have Chris Wojcik on again. So if you guys have questions for him and you guys aren't comfortable with maybe asking him and you want me to ask him, I'll do that too. We'll have him on. Thank you, Chris, for coming on. And we'll see you guys later.
All right. See ya.